Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Boba Face. Boba Face is the first boba tea food truck in Philadelphia, located on Drexel University's campus. Enjoy excellent handcrafted boba tea and compete with fellow boba friends with our mobile game for free boba. Learn more at our official website, thebobaface.com. Welcome to Season 5 of the Color Success Podcast, where we talk with guests from AAPI and ethnic minority communities and have real discussions about mental health and what success looks like. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Before we get into it, remember to subscribe to our mailing list for free at colorsuccesspodcast.com so you don't miss any updates. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. I am so excited to have Catherine Yeoh, a creator, entrepreneur, and investor studying computer science and English at Harvard University. By age 15, she accumulated 400,000 plus followers and turned content creation into a business. Her book, The Creator Revolution, How Today's Creative Talents Are Shaping Our Tomorrow, hit #1 Amazon bestseller in multiple categories. Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie.
I was just so impressed with kind of your stats, so to speak, but I'm really excited to get to know you as a person and wondering, what has your journey been like to becoming a creator and an author?
Yeah, so my story of being a creator stems long ago. I started out in the world of fan fiction, actually, and you can see from my posters behind me that I was a huge, and still am, a huge Star Wars nerd. Wrote a lot of fan fiction, just like jumping things out of my imagination and pouring it onto paper and the page, honestly. Published a lot of it online, was a very big Tumblr kid. I started growing my Tumblr blog and a lot of my online fiction, online art from there. Going from fandom communities, which were so rooted in places like Tumblr back then, to more original fiction and art. And it got to the point where I grew a following large enough that people started asking me, like, hey, if I paid you money, could you write this kind of a story or make this kind of art? And, I was in high school, I was 15. I didn't really know what to think of this other than, this is so cool. Of course I would do it. And the fact was, a lot of my other friends, writers and artists, we started to be able to bring in a passive income from our art, our creative endeavors. And as a pretty technical person too, I just thought it was so cool to watch our technology, the platforms and tools evolve to the point that we could support like creative individuals, especially in a new way, not only just allowing us to make money online, but turn ourselves into businesses. So that was a starting point quite a while ago. I remember a lot of my friends and I, we were testing out the early days of Patreon, or like coffee, or buy me a coffee. And I guess like getting to this point, that like getting to this realization, I didn't realize I was a creator then, but I recognized the potential that technology and connecting the digital fabrics and corners of the internet had. And so over the years, I kept following this trend, grow and grow. Big consumer of content myself, of course. And once quarantine hit in the early days of the pandemic, I just saw an explosion of content because people had so much more time at home. A lot of people turned to both consuming and creating a lot more content. So that inspired me to sit down and want to write about this phenomenon. So I interviewed hundreds of different creators, entrepreneurs, employees at social media companies, and decided to write this book, compile a lot of stories and insights I learned. And just overall today, still very excited about examining and exploring the intersection of technology, creativity, and innovation. So I'm really glad I got to do this as an author now.
I was going to say, did all your high school projects and things that you did for friends, is it funding your Harvard education?
Yeah, even into my first year at Harvard, I was still shipping out pieces of art from my dorm room, and my friends were like, "What are you up to today?" It's like going to the post office to mail off these pieces. So it was, I had ended that journey as a creator then, but to focus more on college. But yeah, it's tied together.
No, absolutely. But that shows true entrepreneurial spirit as well as the intersection, right, with art. And so the creator economy is so huge now, and people are trying to stand out from the pack. And I thought, what a fun exercise to kind of use our podcast, kind of selfish, because I was like, oh, I really want to get Catherine's take on it as to how to increase audience, but really to stand out from the rest of the pack, because there's just so many. It's very saturated right now.
It is. It's such a good question, and definitely there. I think a study from Linktree earlier this year reported that there are over 200 million creators now, and specifically what they classified as a creator is individual who could earn money through digital means. So that's over 200 million people who can do that, which is both super exciting for what that means for what I call the creator revolution, and how much potential lies within, but also like if you're a new or rising creator, it's kind of scary to approach. It's definitely a very saturated place. I think from what I've seen, for a creator to stand out, where you want to start with, like the key question to start with is, what value can you offer that nobody else can? And it might seem really intimidating because you're like, oh, might not be the foremost expert in like a huge thing, but that's okay. That you can just and sometimes it's helpful to separate what kind of value you can provide into one of three buckets that I call like entertain, educate, or inspire. Like, is your content entertaining your audience? Is it educating and informing your audience? And I assume your podcast leans more towards the education side. Is your content, like especially like vlogs or study journals, like looking to inspire people? And then you can start with one category of value, then expand and then cater and tailor to the specific audience you're growing into. But even beyond that, I think a way to stand out today that's pretty different from where the content landscape started decades ago is that you don't need millions of followers to stand out today. Instead, you could lean more into a really strong, robust community of super fans who are willing to make an extra step to share and boost your content. So it's kind of, there was a famous motto by Kevin Kelly called the 1,000 True Fans, and then a venture capitalist called Li Jin, who's a major pioneer in pushing for the creator economy. She proposed 100 true fans. Like, you only need 100 fans, super fans now, rather than thousands. But that leads to a good question of like, how do you build that really robust community? And I think maybe using Color of Success as an example, as you proposed, could be an interesting way of looking at it. So I think one thing I wish I had done earlier as a creator was owning my audience base, like not just on whatever platform I was publishing on, but like owning it through a mailing list or like texting a phone number list, a Discord community, a Facebook group community, like just having some way of having direct access to your audience. And and building that community can take a lot of time and effort, but I've seen some creators do a really great job of using their newsletter or their Discord community to constantly collect feedback, and then their audience can suggest new ideas for videos or like podcast episodes or writing pieces, to meet other fans, to get early access to new content. Like, there's so many creative things you can do in cultivating a small but really powerful community. So I think that's a way to stand out today that wasn't quite possible as an avenue of, as like, an early YouTuber that was very reliant on like getting that viral million view hit video. And I think broader speaking though, the way content creation is going seems to be going down the path of not relying to one platform or even one type of media. So there's diversification of media, like turning this podcast, which you already do, into multiple forms of media, like audio, but also long form and short form video, maybe even text by transcribing the transcript, or turning it into like recapping highlights in a text form. And then, that translates directly to a diversification of platforms where YouTube can be for long and short videos, TikTok for short videos, Facebook and Instagram for short videos, and like text quote snippets from podcasts, previous episodes. Obviously the audio platforms. You could kind of own your own blog or mailing list newsletter and to recap and transcribe in text form. There's short form text like Twitter and LinkedIn. I think this podcast could potentially do really well on LinkedIn because a lot of times it's tied into professional learnings or mental health learnings too. So I think just walking through a lot of the different approaches to this, there's still so much potential, so many creative ways to stand out. So and Color of Success is obviously killing it. So I don't know how much you need this advice, but I'm very excited to continue to see it grow.
I'm serious. I was like, oh my gosh, Peter, this is so awesome. You're linking with Catherine because she's an expert. And, for me, I'm a little bit older than you. Not going to tell how much. So I'm coming at it from a very different standpoint of having gone to graduate school, have my career kind of established, and coming in to say, how are we tackling mental health? Because honestly, it is a huge issue in the Asian American community that I
Absolutely.
see that's just not being addressed. And you go to Harvard, and so I also want to kind of get your take as we talk a little bit more about the ways that creators may face challenges, but also students today. I mean, what pressures do you see that students are facing now, particularly Asian American students, as they are navigating this kind of new world, pandemic, et cetera?
Yeah, I feel like this is a topic that we could definitely chat about for hours on. Asian American students, I think there's several categories. One bucket is the Asian American identity. Like, what does it mean for me to be Asian American? And every student's Asian Americanness is so different and so hard to capture within a label of 2 words. Like I am very grateful for this label. I'm very proud to be Asian American, but it's so hard to tie myself into. Sometimes I feel like it's so hard to tie myself with this label when everyone's so different in their Asian American experience. It's such an encompassing word that struggles to encompass so much in so little. Like one of my college roommates here is an Asian American from Ohio, vastly different from my experience growing up in the Bay Area versus here at Harvard. So I feel like that's kind of one of the biggest questions. And second is, for a lot of Asian American students here who are second generation, third generation, or even beyond, it's a very different mindset than first generation Asian immigrants who moved to this country. And like, what do we take from it? What do we learn from it? How do we, so many recent movies that star AAPI stories are talking about intergenerational trauma and healing from it. How do we confront these issues, learn from it, and also educate both the past, present, and the future, I think are really big questions here. And related to these 2 categories, Harvard currently is going through a lawsuit right now that started at the Supreme Court this week. So I'm sure a lot of questions about identity is on top of everyone's mind. Third bucket, though, I think very tied in with what you said. Mental health is such a stigmatized topic for Asian Americans, young students, and creators too. In my book, I write a lot about the mental health issues that creators face because, what I described just now about ways to stand out. Like if I had to do all of that, I would have burnt myself out so quickly.
I was going to say, I do it. And we recently,
and it's so tiring.
Yeah, we recently hired a social media manager because I was just like, I want to try it out. I can't do all of that. Because when you're describing, I'm like, wow, we were doing that all by ourselves, and so
it's exhausting. It's a constant grind. And in this very algorithm ruled social media platform world, consistency is everything, but sometimes you can't always have that. You want to take breaks. And I always advocate for being mindful of your mental health as a creator. Like that might mean you might lose your numbers for a bit, but you keep yourself going as a person, not just as a creator, which I think is so important.
That is very, very wise. I'm sure that we're going to use that as a snippet while we put this out. But I think one of the major concerns and the pressures that I've seen, and I'm a mother myself, and I try to not be tiger mom, right? Is we always worry about our children for
Mhm.
will they be able to? Every parent that cares about their kids wonders how are they going to support themselves. And fortunately in our household, I still believe that parents will help their children for the rest of their lives for whatever they need. But we always worry about, can they sustain a career with longevity that can make sure that they have food and housing and all the basics, but also hopefully the luxuries. So people are always asked, like, oh, how do you monetize? What are ways that you can actually profit from this and it be a business? Because
Mhm.
it's kind of the new art where it's like, oh, are you the starving creator?
I know it's such a challenging question to answer, because no creator does monetization or commercialization the same way, in my opinion. It depends so much on your niche or what platform you're on, and or what you want to lean into, and are you doing this full time or part time or just purely for fun? Um, but I guess how I think about it in a more structured way is how, just like how a business or startup needs to achieve product market fit, creators need to find their creator market fit. And the venture capitalist I mentioned earlier, Legion, she likes to ask creators three questions, which is, do I enjoy making this? Do people want this? And really tied into what you said, like, can I sustain myself creating this? Like, sustain, I interpret as a word of like sustaining yourself financially, sustaining yourself mentally. Like, do you have the time to balance all this? And so once you answer these questions, and once you've determined your value as a creator to your audience, you kind of need to experiment, validate your strategy, refine your content by publishing content at a somewhat of a reasonably consistent pace, so that you have enough to continue soliciting feedback, then iterating on that feedback. So you kind of keep going in this loop. And then once you've hit this aha, I've found creator market fit moment, I think that's the best time to start monetizing your content. And so like that is a moment you describe as what you want to see it as. So for some people, they're like, oh, I can't start monetizing until I hit 100,000 followers, but I definitely don't think that's true. You start monetizing when you feel like you've hit creator market fit and that it aligns with your goals. And if you wanted more specific, like concrete ways, I think you can divide it up into like, platform payments like YouTube AdSense or Twitch, but that seems to be more on the dwindling, declining side. The big one is like brand sponsorships. But you also have to be careful with what brands you're partnering with, how you're talking to them, how you set up those contracts. Gated content, I don't know if you do this, like offering Patreon memberships, but I think there are a lot of podcasts that do this, like offer extra exclusive content behind a premium subscription or gating system. Another one is like selling your own content through like courses or merch, like as these recurring streams. And I think the last one is the hardest to scale, but could be valuable in terms of commercializing and leveraging scarcity, like offering private coaching or consulting, office hours, that you use your brand to kind of make your own opportunities this way. So and there's a lot of creative ways to do this. Like I was thinking just now, you're called The Color of Success. I think it'll be super cool if you release like a coloring book of
That is
AAPI
so
leaders
cool.
or concepts in mental health, or like a children's coloring book related to concepts and lessons you've talked about, like that might all tie in. I don't know.
This is why you're the expert. I'm so glad I met you. That is such a fantastic idea. I have never heard that suggestion, and that is amazing. Tell us more about your book, and maybe, of course, you're not going to tell us all the tea in there because people actually have to buy it. Okay. But tell us more about that process and what could people look forward to in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So my book is The Creator Revolution, holding it here. It examines the rise of digital content creators and their impact on transforming both our current present and our future. And the book profiles and interviews a lot of incredible, amazing, diverse creators across any niches, from like educators to activists, entrepreneurs to filmmakers, cosplayers, writers, a lot of incredible stories to learn from, including a lot of AAPI creators.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's case studies, there's interviews, there's concrete advice and tips, lots to learn from and look forward to. I think a very quick preview of the 3 sections of the books are: first, how creators are reshaping our society at Broad, so transforming the economy and what the future of work looks like. We've talked a little about this earlier, like shopping and e-commerce, education, and like media. So that's like the big first section. Second section is how the creator revolution has also granted us a reality where, as an individual, you can create your own success. You can like create your own narrative and outcome. So those chapters talk about how you see people leveraging content to build their own personal brands, becoming entrepreneurs and launching their businesses, amplifying representation in media. So elements you can do on more on the individual lens. And the last section talk more about the major challenges creators face, such as burnout, mental health, harassment, parasocial relationships, etc., and how as a society we must still work towards addressing these issues together. So that's a super quick preview of my book. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it'll be in the thumbnail, and we'll link all that for purchase. So one of the big questions that I have for you, you're so wise. And I don't want to say, oh, because
I really
you're
appreciate
young.
that.
Because I started really young too, and it doesn't just come with age. There's a sense of some people just have this life experience and these thoughts that it almost feels like a more mature person in a young person's body, which is my ideal. I don't want any wrinkles anymore. So if I could just
I think your skincare is perfect, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's probably Zoom touch up. But what does success look like to you at this point in time? Because I don't want a future trip.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a great answer to this right now, and maybe my answer to this will change over the course of my lifetime. But for me, I think I've always wanted to be remembered as a genuine person who loves her family and community and does her best to bring the world greater joy and impact. And what joy and impact entail, I think I'll leave it up to how I define it over the course of my life. But that's for now is how I see success and approach or use success to approach and define what I do.
And that is a wonderful encapsulation of your values, because I think a lot of times when people think about goals, those are things that can be achieved, but values are aspirational. It's not like, oh, I want to have a good relationship with my parents and then I love you and we're done. So I think that's again, a very wise way to position that, because you're not putting yourself in a box to say, I hear it a lot. I want to make a lot of money. Okay. And oftentimes from people in high school and college, and putting myself in that spot, and again, thinking about some of the Asian American values that I had in my community of go to a great school, get a good job, and buy a house and things like that, right? Totally makes sense. And at the same time, it can be very limiting. So again, very wise words. So
I would love to hear
yeah,
how you define it. How do you define success and what it looks like for you?
I think at the time that was how I defined it. And as I became a mother and have a family, it has really been, how can I make the world, and it sounds lofty, but how can I make the world a better place? How can I give
Hmm.
my girls the opportunity to speak up and face these challenges based on the way that we look? And I
Hmm.
know that they have a social justice bent, because when we talk about Asian American hate crimes, and they're young, they're just like, why would that happen? It's almost
Hmm.
like this idea that, oh God, why would the world do that? And so
Hmm.
there's that level of innocence, but at the same time, I want them to feel comfortable in, even if someone doesn't agree with what they say, you're still standing up for what you believe in terms of equity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, it doesn't hurt to like be able to go on vacation with them. So they're having experiences is really important to me. I
Hmm.
learned early on, after a coworker passed away after he retired for working for decades, that I don't want to wait till I'm in my 60s or 70s to kind of live the life that I want to live. And so with that, really carving out time and resources to be able to have those experiences when I want to have them.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much.
so you have this wonderful collaboration with Boba Face, which is, Foodscape is the larger company. It's a matching game of boba, and you can win boba. They're having a truck. Who doesn't love it? Tell us more about how this came to fruition.
Yeah, well, Peter Chung from Boba Face reached out to me. I know you've had him on this
Yes.
podcast before, and I loved what he and Boba Face were doing, so partnered with him and his boba food truck, so that my book is sold out of the truck, which is currently in Philadelphia. So I'm hoping to make a visit soon to see this and buy boba from them, and also trying to arrange some talks. But I don't know, supporting the Asian American community, especially the entrepreneurs in this community, has always been a goal of mine, and really glad that he reached out for this collaboration.
I mean, can you imagine just getting the boba and getting your book? It's perfect. And it's gonna get a little chilly out there. So hopefully, people have coats on. But oh, if
Yes, it
if you
is
go there,
such
yeah.
a kind of crazy fever dream for me because I love boba. I love reading and obviously put a lot of time into writing this book. So when I see pictures of people holding my book up at his truck, I'm like, wow, this is super cool.
I mean, and all the characters are so, so cute. I'm so the demographic, right? Like BTS, all this kind of stuff. So he was like, "What are your thoughts on this?" It was just a good discussion. But
Mhm.
that's fantastic. Where can people learn more about you and your book and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Catherine H. Yo, and you can find my book anywhere you buy books online. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Bookshop. All the links are on my website, catherinehyo.com/creator.
Thank you so much for being on the show. It has been such a pleasure. And yeah, we can talk about this all day, but I know you're a busy, busy woman.
As are you. Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. This was a huge honor and loved being here.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember to support us for free by subscribing to our mailing list at colorsuccesspodcast.com. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. As Rob Heaps from Partner Track said, success is contagious, so come catch it.